Well, a new study from the Cleveland Clinic shows most men say they know how important it is to exercise, but they still skip it.
Yep. Sports medicine specialist Dr. Peck joins us today to talk about how men can get back on track and avoid injuries. Dr. Peck, thank you so much for joining us. So I guess let's start there. What else did this study reveal?
Well, basically that survey revealed that most men, and I would guess most people in general, but this survey showed that most men know that exercise is important for their health, for their vitality, for their well-being, but for whatever reason, at least a third of them find that they just can't, they can't actually execute and be as active as they'd like to be.
Yeah, and sometimes, just life gets in the way, but you say that getting that exercise, especially as men get older, is good to start, putting into your life even a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think, in my practice, I see that there's a lot of barriers to this. One barrier might be time. People are busy, they have jobs, they have families. Another thing is people just might not know what to do. Another potential reason is that people have tried to exercise and they've gotten injured. So in my practice, we try to address these things. You come in, let's say you came in with a knee injury or a shoulder injury, and we address that, we want to get you better, but we also want to look at what are you doing? Like, what is your exercise program? What is your diet like? What are your sleep habits like? Because if we discuss those things, not only will you recover from your current injury better, but maybe we can prevent future things and better equip you for a healthier lifestyle going forward.
Yeah, we actually were having such a fascinating conversation in the commercial break. You're saying by the time people come see me, they've suffered some sort of injury.
Yeah.
And the way our system is set up is let's address that. But you're looking at the bigger picture. You're looking at the injury, you're getting people back on track, but you're also looking at how do we prevent another injury?
Absolutely. So as I was saying earlier, our system is designed to fix sickness, to fix illness, to fix an injury, and then kind of put you on your way. And I think it's important that we try to find a way to have some preventive medicine. So in my corner of the world, you might come in with a knee injury or a shoulder injury, but let's talk about preventive medicine. Let's talk about what we can do to prevent a future injury. Let's improve your lifestyle, and there is time for that, And the time management issue is not to be overlooked. A lot of people say they're just too busy to exercise, and I think a lot of times people think that the commitment that they would need to do to be healthy is much more than you really need. So I often explain to people, you really don't need to do that much to be pretty darn healthy, So it's just kind of setting the right expectations and helping people understand how they can fit it into their life.
And we were also chatting, too, that it needs to be different forms of exercise. People who only lift weights but never stretch, or you have the opposite, where they only stretch but they never actually strengthen those muscles. But those two have to work together for that preventative benefactor.
Absolutely, and so I think that's probably one of the most common things I see, is that among active people. So when people come in and they are physically active, they don't have a diversity of physical activity. And the research on this is very clear that we need to strength train. Everyone needs to do some kind of resistance training. Everyone needs to do some kind of aerobic training. And then there's a lot of other physical qualities that could be trained, like flexibility, balance, etc. And those are important too. But at the very least, we want to make sure that people have the strength training component, the aerobic exercise component, and that way we're providing balanced health benefits, because there's certain things. I give the analogy of a dentist. He's going to tell you, he or she is going to tell you, no matter how much you brush, you still need to floss.
Right.
Like no amount of brushing can replace flossing. Same thing with aerobic exercise and strength training. We need both. No matter how much you do of one, you need to do the other.
Dr. Peck, for the people out there who are watching and are saying, oh, I just don't have the time to do this, I mean, even just maybe a brisk walk in the afternoon, would that be just one step towards that goal of incorporating exercise more into your life, or should they just dive on in?
Well, I think you got to start somewhere, and you don't have to start with the perfect exercise program. So if someone is not physically active and they're like, where do I start?
Yeah.
I absolutely think walking is underrated. Just get going with walking, maybe after dinner or whenever you have time, 20 to 30 minutes, 2 or 3 days a week. You got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think once you make that habit, then it's a lot easier to add things in. If someone says to you, like, well, you need to train 6 days a week and you got to do an hour and you have to warm up this way and you have to do this stretching, it's overwhelming. You're already busy with your life. And so I think start easy. Start with a walk 3 days a week. And I tell my patients all the time, if you walk 3 days a week for 30 minutes, and then you can find some time to do a very basic strengthening program, and I help them with the details of that, for 20 to 30 minutes twice a week, that's more than enough to be healthy. And once people hear that, they're often surprised that it's not going to take as much time as they thought.
Yeah.
So enough exercise to be healthy is not as out of reach as a lot of people realize. And I really like to help people try to get to that point.
Yeah, and specifically, this is for men who maybe could be a little stubborn and say, I don't really want to work out. What would be your advice right now, a guy to a guy?
So I think, for men, men and women have a lot of similarities, of course, but there are some differences. And I think for men, sometimes and this may be a bit of a stereotype, but I feel like sometimes men need to feel purpose in their exercise. Like, I'm doing this for a reason. Like, I'm doing this so that I can play golf with my friends. I'm doing this so that I can throw a baseball to my son and coach his team.
Right.
I'm doing this so that I can take a trip with my wife and we can go hiking and my knees won't bother me. I think for a lot of men, and maybe this is true for women too, again, this is not, a strict, between the genders, but for a lot of men, it seems like they need that purpose. Like, they need a purpose to start with their fitness program, and that really helps them, I think, for a lot of people, not everyone, but for a lot of people, maintain that discipline of like, I'm gonna stick to this because I'm thinking of that bigger purpose.
Right.
And often it's something outside of themselves. It's something they're doing for another person, for a spouse, for a child, for the community, something, being healthy for another purpose.
Yeah, that's great perspective. We appreciate that.
My pleasure.
Do it for your family.
Do it for your family, but also do it for yourself.
Yes.
It's the greatest gift you could give yourself is to stay
Absolutely.
healthy.
Yes.
Awesome, thank
True.
you.
Dr. Peck, thank you so much for joining us today. We are out of time, but we'll have much more Arc Florida after the break.
Thank you.